you everybody who's shown up so far. We're gonna get started in like a minute. Okay. Napoleon Nelson, thank you so much for coming. Napoleon is the chair of the Black Caucus, Legislative Black Caucus, who will also be speaking today. Okay. I want to thank everybody for formally showing up on time. I appreciate that. And one of the things that I've always done, my corporate background, is to train people. If you start on time, you'll be on time. And we used to actually shut the door at exactly when everything was supposed to start. That way, people learn to get here on time. So I certainly thank everybody for showing up, and we're going to get started. Don't really want to hold up the Austin Davis, but we want to make sure, and we want to thank everybody for coming in and actually showing up today. It's extremely important to understand the significance of what has taken place. The Supreme Court basically made the United States go back a time of 1965. They've basically taken out the voter protection that we had before, and we want to have Austin, our leader, our brother, to actually talk about the importance of it and what could take place. So, Austin, can you start us off?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike, for having us today and for convening this call. And I really want to thank all of the Pennsylvania Democratic Black Caucus members for convening this group so quickly, and for everyone for taking the time to be here tonight. I'm grateful to be joined with Representative Nelson, my brother. Thank you for being here. You look a little too comfortable. I'm in Harrisburg. I don't know about you. You look like you're at home right now, but thank you for being with us. Last week's Supreme Court ruling effectively gutted the Voting Rights Act, an act that was fought for by people like Dr. King and civil rights leaders all across America to make sure that every person was able to have a voice and a seat at the table. Dare I say, I would not be here today if it wasn't for the Voting Rights Act. And the Legislative Black Caucus in Harrisburg would not be growing every cycle after every election with every election cycle. That act makes sure that black and brown folks are able to build real political power. But conservatives on the Supreme Court rolled it back anyway. And I want you to know, I want to be clear that Governor Shapiro and I have been clear. We will defend our democracy and protect our fundamental freedom to vote here in this Commonwealth so that Pennsylvania will continue to have free and fair, secure elections across our Commonwealth. Our administration and the governor has a long track record of standing up to Donald Trump and his enablers' attempts to disenfranchise Pennsylvania voters and voters across this country. When the Trump administration threatened the security of Pennsylvania's elections, the governor and I defended eligible voters' privacy by protecting voter rolls from the federal government's overreach for personal and private information. And most recently, last month, we filed a lawsuit with 22 other states in response to Trump's executive order to unconstitutionally restrict mail-in voting, an attempt to nationalize elections and interfere with states' power to run them. We've delivered on the promise to make sure all eligible voters have the freedoms to make their voices heard in the very democracy that was founded right here in Pennsylvania. However, with these continued attacks by Trump and Republicans, I want you to know that we stand firm on our commitment to ensure that every person can participate in our democracy. That's why the stakes of these upcoming midterms elections are so high. This November, we need to see a national referendum against Trump, against his enablers, and against the people who are celebrating the downfall of the Voting Rights Act. Together, the governor and I are focused on helping elect Democrats up and down the ballot who will stand up and protect the fundamental freedoms to vote that all Pennsylvanians have enjoyed. With the opportunity to flip 4 congressional seats and the balance of power in the United States House of Representatives, Pennsylvania has the power to send leaders to Washington who will defend our democracy against these attacks, leaders who will put progress over partisanship, leaders who will take action to further safeguard our rights and not restrict them. Such actions include passing a national anti-gerrymandering law, a new Voting Rights Act so that Donald Trump and his enablers and Republican-controlled states do not have the ability to undermine the Constitution and diminish Black voters power. And even though Trump may not sign it, those two actions are beginning to push back at the federal level on the cruelty that we're seeing from this White House. I hope that despite last week's Supreme Court ruling, we all feel reinvigorated to get in this fight because we simply don't have a choice to stand on the sidelines. This is about not just the world that we live in, but I know many of you have talked about this a lot. I became a dad for the first time in my first year of being lieutenant governor. It's about the world and the rights that our children are going to inherit. And I want them to be able to enjoy the same rights that my grandparents and parents fought for to make sure that they have the opportunity to chart their own course. So we as Black elected officials have the ability to be the voice for the voiceless. And now is our moment to really stand up and fight for our fundamental rights and freedoms. I'm proud to join you in this fight, to lead you in this fight. And I want you to know that I'm going to be on the front lines with you each and every single day. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Good. Austin, thank you so much. I can't say how proud we are to have a young Black man that's sitting in the power as a lieutenant governor and doing positive things and getting stuff done. I do not curse, but getting stuff done. Thanks so much. Next, I want to turn it over to our parliamentarian, Archie Palmore. Tell us about the threat, Archie. What's going on? Hold on.
Yes. How you doing, Michael?
Good.
And hello, everyone who's on board. I just want to thank you, Michael, and the Black Caucus leadership for allowing me to come on and also for reacting so quickly to pull this together, because I know it was not an easy feat to pull this together and giving me an opportunity to speak a little bit about the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which I believe is one of the most significant acts that dealt with civil rights that we've had in this country. In order to do that, I want to give a little bit of a history lesson. I hope please bear with me because it's important to know the history and the context in which the civil rights, the Voting Rights Act was contemplated. First of all, we have to go back to the Reconstruction Acts of the 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment, and 15th Amendment. And of course, we know the 15th Amendment was the amendment that gave rights to freed slaves, and particularly males, actually. And that is also the amendment that the civil rights and the Voting Rights Act sort of emanated from. So bringing it forward, and I will explain the significance of that in a minute. But bringing it forward now, we have the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which really did give a lot of rights to protected citizens, to protect citizens of our country, particularly African-American citizens. Prior to that, states could basically do what they wanted to do in terms of impairing the rights of the racial discrimination against certain minority groups. And so the Voting Rights Act gave some protection, actually a lot of protection. And in particular, if you look at Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and Section 5, in which Section 5 actually identified certain states in the South, in the Deep South, that showed a deep history of discrimination, not only against African Americans and Blacks, but also other minority groups. And so those states had to then, under Section 5, get what we call a pre-clearance from the Civil Rights Division of the government the Justice Department, before they could make any changes at all in civil rights as it relates to voting locally. Of course, in 2013, in Shelby versus Holder, what that did is that basically eliminated the pre-clearance provision in the Voting Rights Act. And therefore, those particular states, and basically any other state, gave them a freer hand to impose certain laws that would disenfranchise and discriminate against racial groups. Of course, then there was Section 2 of the Voter Rights Act that basically gave the a private citizen or through the Department of Justice a right to sue for any remedy in which if they felt their Voting Rights Act had been violated. Now, this latest Supreme Court case has virtually eviscerated the 1965 Voting Rights Act through Section 2 by basically saying that states can, in fact, my reading of the opinion is that states can, in fact, draw gerrymandering lines or redistrict lines that would, of course, give a benefit to maybe some racial group, but in fact, that would be unconstitutional now. And the way I look at this, we're almost saying reverse discrimination because we're taking the laws that it at some point helped minority groups in this country, and now they're being used against them or totally eliminated. So I think that that's where we are now, basically, and hopefully we can figure out what the next step is going to be. And in my view, some of that strategy has to be legislative, if not all legislative. And I hope some of our speakers coming up can speak to this, as well as perhaps changing the number of justices on the Supreme Court. And that's not a new idea. I think under the Biden administration, that idea was being toyed with. And if you go back and read the Constitution, there's no set number of justices that have to sit on the Supreme Court. I think basically in this country, we start off at 6 and it's been as high as 10. But I think that should be a strategy that should be looked at. And with that, I hope some of our speakers coming up can speak to that. And basically, that's the kind of overall view that I wanted to give. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you. You know, it's funny. There's a brother by the name of Ali Meister, and he's the person that had actually said that his strategy is to take the Supreme Court and make it more proportional. And by doing that, some people have said, let's adjust it to the size of the circuits. And you've got 13 circuits, but you've got 9 justices. So some people have said that. But Meister's strategy says the same lift that you have to do to get to 13 is the same lift you have to do to get to a more proportional number. He proposes a proportional number of 29. And he's one of the head leaders in terms of this strategy. And it's interesting because another person his name is Ted Starmer, and he's a leader of resistance, historical leader of resistance history. And he talked about the fact that we do have certain tools, and those tools are the Congress could actually take off certain areas and certain things from the docket, like voter protection or a number of different things. But anyway, I get into that later. I'm not here to talk too long. Anyway, right now, I'd like to introduce our panelists and our key people that are actually going to be talking today. We've got Corinne Landauer. Corinne is going to be one of our key streamers. She's worked with us in the DNC. Also, we've got Aissia, who's also going to be on. So, Corinne, can you guys take it from here?
But Michael, can I say something here, Michael?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Michael, I thought I was getting off by 7:30 because I have another Zoom to do. I thought you were getting me on at the beginning. I'm sorry.
Well, no. Well, let's go directly to our chair, Eugene.
Yeah, sorry. Because I've got 3 more of these tonight. So
okay.
So hey, thank you, everyone. I don't want to. I'm sorry to interrupt. I thought I was getting on at the beginning, so apologize for that. A couple of things.
No
First
problem.
of all, following up from the lieutenant governor. When it came to the SAVE Act, when Donald Trump tried to do that through the executive order, we were, as a party, were in close communication with the administration on that. We were prepared to file our own lawsuit, but we strategically believed it was better coming from the governor on that. So so, we're working hand in glove on that to make sure that we're beating that back through the executive order, which is obviously a federal overreach. And when it comes to the Voting Rights Act and the Supreme Court decision, not only did we speak out against it immediately from the party side of it, but we are putting in place even before that. But this is ramping up our effort now, knowing the threat that is coming, that we are going to have voting rights voting rights lawyers in every single county. We are actually ahead of the curve on where we were in 2024, which was a presidential election. So we already have the top people hired, and we're putting together a team in every single county to make sure that every single voter, particularly Democrats, but we want to protect the vote of every single Democrat at the ballot this November. So we're going to have an experienced team in every single county, coordinating with both our county parties. Certainly, we want to coordinate with the Black Caucus, and we know where the biggest threats are going to come to people of color, particularly when it comes to if Trump tries to deploy ICE to the ballot boxes. So we are getting the word out to both our base voters and to the party to making sure that they know that we are taking these threats very seriously against our voters, but also pushing back against the law or the attempted change in the law itself through executive order. This administration, we know, is playing for keeps. Pennsylvania is going to be the key state in the country, particularly for trying to flip Congress. With all the gerrymandering that's happened across ideological spectrums right now, we have the most flippable seats in the country, which means the center of the political universe congressionally is going to be upon us, which means they are going to do everything they can to try to hold on to power. And our job is to make sure not only we win these elections and get our voters out, but protecting our voters in these key areas to make sure that they get the vote.
Thank you so much, Eugene. A question for you.
Yeah.
Can you take a question?
No, sure.
What can the DNC do to help us out and to help out the party?
So one is a resource issue. Obviously, they can help financially. Now I will tell you that they seem to be struggling financially. So we got to make sure that we are raising our own money to do this on our own. If they can be helpful on that, that's great. But the key part, I think, whereas they can bring, because we are the state that's in play here. There's other states that, to be blunt, don't have that many swing races. So they're going to be deploying some of their legal resources to our state as well. Now, obviously, if you're not a Pennsylvania lawyer, our lawyers have to take the lead, but they can provide that expertise as well and provide supplemental legal experience to us on that, serving in both our boiler room and even deploying people that we can, that can advise people on the law. So that is where their biggest asset can be. Because I'm just going to say it right now, like say there's states like Missouri and, Kentucky, and I'm just naming states right now that don't have as many congressional races as us. They can help, just like volunteers in a presidential election. We get these tons of volunteers from Maryland and New Jersey because Pennsylvania is a key swing state. The same exact thing we're working on making sure that happens with the legal team, because we just have more swing races here in Pennsylvania.
Wow. Absolutely amazing. Can you take one question if anyone has one?
Sure, absolutely.
Sure. Any of the panel members have a question for the chair? Okay.
I have one.
Yes.
Eugene, is the state party taking any legal action in light of not only this particular measure, but some of the other things we know that are coming down the pike or that are current? Do we have any, or have we filed any amicus? Are we signing on to any lawsuits to legally go to the courts for some of this?
So we had planned on doing it when Trump signed the executive order on the SAVE Act, but through a discussion with the administration, meaning the Shapiro administration, we thought strategically it was better for that to seem less political and defend all voters as the state at large. That was a strategic decision. We were prepared to do it. If there's any of these cases that come up down the line where the administration, for whatever reason, chooses not to do it, I've told Laser and the rest of the team to be prepared that we would, at a minimum, file an amicus brief on that, because obviously we cannot expect our state attorney general to protect our rights.
Okay. Thank you. Any additional questions? Eugene, thank you so much for responding very quickly. We know you're very busy. You've got to move on, but thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Michael. Good luck to the panelists and Rep Nelson. Great to see you, Michael. Keep up the great work, my friend. Thanks for pulling this together so fast.
Thank you. Okay, wonderful.
Take care,
All right.
everybody.
Thanks. Okay. Next, we've got Rep Nelson, but I wanted to introduce Corinne and Aissia. They will actually be handling it from here on out. I will be handling some of the technical backgrounds because that's one of my expertises. Okay.
So, Michael, I just wanted to say thank you so much for pulling this together. Corinne and I are really excited about this, and it's good to see the leadership taking this seriously as well. So thank you so much.
Sure. Welcome. Okay. You guys want to introduce the man right here?
So, yeah, this is Rep. Napoleon Nelson, head of the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus, and representing the Cheltenham area in Philadelphia and in the state, in the state house. So really great to have you here at our voting forum. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, and thank you all. I'm home as Lieutenant Governor mentioned because I'm sitting here just getting over a head cold. But it's really important that we have this conversation. I know members of the Legislative Black Caucus have already kind of had some conversations around what this Calais decision really means and how we understand our mission going forward. I'm thrilled that my colleague, Rep. Greg Scott, is here. Montgomery County is certainly representing fairly well. I know that we will have others, and I should just thank you also for being in this office and in the work over with the Senator Sharif Street's office. This is a crazy time. And for us, the Legislative Black Caucus, I can tell you that those couple of months that I was able to lead the caucus during the Biden season was just so much better than this past year and a half leading under Donald Trump's kind of reshaping America. I know we will get into all of the many implications of Trump 2.0, and of course, this latest being the Calais decision, and understand, as Archie discussed earlier, you got to make sure that we put this decision in context with prior decisions, because prior decisions, the courts had already identified and kind of stated in opinion, in fact, that it was okay for states to do political gerrymandering. What was really, if you could call it holding them back, what was constraining many of the states, especially southern states, especially Republican states, was still this Article 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which said that you could not really discriminate and break up Black and brown communities if you were a Mississippi or if you were in Alabama or something like that, that had a large enough Black population that was clearly concentrated in some spaces, that you had to ensure that there was minority representation. So for all of us who understand gerrymandering, I mean, this is, packing districts. What folks would do is they would pack all of the districts, all of the Black voters into a congressional district so that they could say, all right, well, we'll give you one. And then the rest of the districts will be majority white and Republican, and they would draw them appropriately. Now they don't have that same requirement. So the Calais decision didn't say that you could explicitly redistrict or gerrymander based on race. What it said was largely that they don't know what that looks like. It's kind of, it's that horrible kicking the can or abdication of responsibility at the court level that says, if you show me emails and texts that explicitly prove that that was their intention, then yes, that is illegal. But otherwise, they have no idea how in the world to prove whether or not there was racially targeted gerrymandering or redistricting. So we are in this horrible place now, and we will be here for some time. And as I'll talk about more, that this is kind of par for the course for what Trump 2.0 looks like. And we, as a Black Democratic voting base, need to understand what our responsibility is.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of this frustration, I think, comes from folks who understood all of the activism that was done during the Warren court, and where how we got Brown versus the Board of Education and um, legislate or court decisions that were equitable and moved our, arc towards justice. And now it seems that that arc is bending back. And so I think that's what is so frustrating about what is happening. And I know that something's going on in Harrisburg this week. Do you want to talk about K. Leroy Irvis Day of Action?
Sometimes things become timely. So, yes, the Legislative Black Caucus is having our annual conference in Harrisburg on Wednesday and Thursday, May 6th and 7th. Please, I'll figure out how to throw the link to it in the chat, but we'd love to see you. It is a free conference, so come one, come all. Please do register so we can make sure that we don't run out of food. As part of that, the Legislative Black Caucus and Black Caucus Foundation is giving away about $30,000 in scholarships to high school students and I guess college students in Pennsylvania. We're really, really excited about that. Have some wonderful panels already designed. We've got dinner on the Wednesday, as well as breakfast and lunch on Thursday already covered. So again, hope that you all can make it out to Harrisburg this week. And yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to make it a plug. It's really, really important that we understand this moment. And I'm sure we'll talk more about legislation that's coming. But we have seen this, right? So we've seen this with the crumpling of the affirmative action and our ability to really get our kids the opportunities they need in higher education. So we're kind of still left with the crumbling schools that we have and not preparing our students, allowing them their best opportunities to shine on higher ed campuses, especially the most selective. This was a Donald Trump court that took that away. We've been wrestling with the same outcrop of that when it comes to minority contracting and the ability to ensure that we can grow businesses for targeted minority groups as we try and dig ourselves out of everything from discrimination and contracting and redlining and the inability to start businesses because we can't buy houses, right? We've been dealing with that because of this administration in that same court case. We've been wrestling with, again, voting rights and the inability to make sure we can cast our ballot and get something for our vote. That's the most important part. So, so many of these items in housing will all be discussed this week in Harrisburg, but it's most important that we understand how we discuss them in this election season and how we make sure we talk about them when we get on the doors.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that the K. Leroy Irvis Day of Action is about intentionality, making sure that we're building leaders for the future. And maybe one of those folks that got a scholarship will be on that Supreme Court that helps to roll back some of these decisions that are being made. So thank you so much. And so, Corinne, do you want to take it to our next panel?
Good evening, everyone. I will. Thank you so much to my streaming partner, Aissia Richardson. My name is Corinne Landauer. And yes, our next panelist or speaker for this evening is Representative Greg Scott from Montgomery County. Rep Scott, whenever are you able to?
I'm so sorry. I was talking, but I was muted. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you all for jumping on and thinking it not robbery at a time like this to get on. We're at 83 people on the call, and I think it talks about the significance of this moment. My name is Greg Scott. I'm a state rep out of Montgomery County. I represent the communities of Norristown, Conshohocken, and Plymouth Township. And obviously, we don't need to talk about the problem. We know the problem and we know the significance of this moment. And, I think we got to talk about implementation. I think, this is a season of implementation for Black folks. And I hope that we don't miss the opportunity because we knew what their strategy was. They wrote it in this thing called Project 2025. So our plan, we should be at the point right now where we should be implementing our plan. What is our Project 2028? And I want to say thank you to all of you who have jumped off the sidelines and literally gotten into the game and joined the state committee, the Black Democratic Committee, and be Black Democratic Committee members. Because how we get out of this moving forward is one, we got to make sure that we get our numbers up in this primary election. We got to vote, bar none, is the number one thing. The number two thing we got to do is I've aligned myself with the Democratic Party here, and they have a system in place to identify and support candidates up and down the ballot called committee people. There's state committee people, which you guys intimately know. They're also local committee people. And I think if you think that John Fetterman has been complicit, well, state committee people will have a voice in what happens next and who the party supports in that primary. If you think that it's important that an attorney general speaks up in this moment, it's very intentional by asking our state committee chairman, Democratic Party chairman, about where is our state party at with respect to the legal aspects of this case, right? And we have an attorney general that is representing Pennsylvania right now that is not reflective of my values. And I think he could be doing a little bit more, a lot more, quite frankly. And the state committee will have a say on who that candidate is that will replace him, hopefully. And we've got to look at our ballot. And if you have an empty spot for your state committee person or your local committee person, well, hopefully you guys will, that's your audience. But if there's local spots empty, we got to write people in, write your name in, get 10 others in your community to write people in, and do the same thing with your family. Call your brother, your sister, your mother, your son, your daughter, and ask them to do the same. Because we need not only just for you to get off the sidelines and get into the game, but we need other people to get off the sidelines and get into the game. And to answer the second part of the question that you guys emailed me is, I think what we also have to do, aside from getting off the sidelines and getting in the game, is we got to stand up. Once you're in the room and you have an opportunity to speak, which all of you are at the state committee, we got to take a hold of our power and use that power to speak up and make sure that we do our part to empower people that are in these positions, whether elected or not elected, to make sure that their policies and programs positively affect us, because we are incredibly vulnerable right now. We are a marginalized community as a whole, and typically governments have not responded to our needs in a way that fundamentally changes how our lives can better as a whole for Black and brown people. What they will do, history has shown, they will create a program to placate us for a period of time, or to placate a group of us and segment us out, whether for right or for wrong, but they will placate us through this funding of a system, and then we take it and we support these people. And I think we've got to fundamentally reevaluate how we look at these systems. And I think when we have the power, which I think we do, you got 80 something people on a call right now. We got to make sure that folks that are in power, whether you're the governor, the attorney general, or running for president, they should know where we stand on these issues, and we should change and blow up systems and recreate and reimagine these systems in a world that helps Black and brown people. And I think that that's what I'm interested in talking about. But I hope I've answered both of the questions you guys emailed me, and I'm happy to stick around for a little bit longer if necessary.
Thank you very much, Representative Scott. We have commentary that people are clapping and saying amen to your comments.
Don't amen. Vote. Don't amen. Get on state committee. Don't amen. Get on those local Democratic committees, right? Make sure these committees are reflective not only of our skin color, but of our values and of our belief systems. And do they have policies and visions that will take us from, amen and shout? And I don't need another emotional tribute. Shit, I got stuff in my own house that'll make me emotional. I can get happy or sad in my own house, right? I got products that'll help even if I can't physically get there. What I need is systems and policies that help my kids be able to read. You want to stop a bullet in my community? We need more jobs in my district. You want to stop the bleeding of our education system. I need more Black and brown teachers. How are we empowering them? What are we doing with our mental health? So this is not these aren't talking points. We need to be doing it, and you all are in position to do it. So would love to stand shoulder to shoulder in any way that I can with you all, especially as you guys head into this next season and you're creating new leadership. Don't give away your vote blindly. I don't give a shit who it is. Nobody should be able to just get your vote because they got a Democrat next to their name, or they got this Black person running with them, or this person. No. We want to have a real tangible conversation about what are you going to do to help Black and brown people in this community. In my specific area, I'm always looking for economic opportunity and education, right? The economic opportunity and education. What are you doing to affect and change policies for Black and brown people? And I would hope that when you all make your decision on who you are going to support at a state committee level, that you are asking structured questions, hopefully in those formats.
Thank you so much, Representative Scott.
I got a question.
Go ahead, Chairman Law.
Sure. Now, I noticed that you said placate. Can you talk about how some people have been placated?
Oh, 1,000%. I'll give you an example. We have right now happening in a policy debate about how we should respond. And I'm gonna take an issue that's not necessarily always a sexy topic. Let's shift, and I think this will help all of us, right? ICE is in our communities, right? And this is not traditionally seen as a Black issue, right? This is more of a Hispanic Latinx issue, is what they would say. And our response has a state house has been lackluster. This is me speaking, Gregory Scott, independent, one of 203 members. And they will say, oh, that's a federal issue. This should be, you don't have any jurisdiction over this as a state issue. And I would say, I disagree. My pushback would be, there's a lot that we can do. We can change our State Human Relations Act, Commissions Act, and expand jurisdiction that anybody that violates the constitutional rights of any Pennsylvania constitutional right. And I know there's way more lawyers on here that are smarter than this than me. But if you violate the Pennsylvania Constitution for a Pennsylvania citizen, you should be able to record that data, upload that data, and then you should be able to be held accountable, not according just as the federal law, but to state law. And so typically what we will see is they will get out here, there will be elected people, and I don't call them leaders, I call them elected officials. They will get out here and they'll stand with their signs that say, hate has no home here, ICE, get out, ICE out. You know what I mean? When you have the power to actually do something. So when you're in the room where it happens, are you speaking up to make sure that we bring up bills when people violate people's Pennsylvania constitutional right and they have an opportunity to hold people accountable? What are you saying in that moment? Right? And I would wager that there haven't been enough people saying that we need to speak up and do something in this moment because we haven't been able to see any legislative action. They placate us by these press conferences and by creating beautiful signs. But when it comes to the rubber meets the road, I don't need another speech. I need, what are you doing with the role that you have? You have the power to do something. And so that's an example of placating. I don't need to know where Josh Shapiro stands on this particular issue at a press conference, but when he's negotiating the budget, what is Josh Shapiro thinking, and what is he saying in the room?
Thank you so much,
Does
Representative.
that answer your question, Mr. Laws?
Yes, it does.
I can give you another example if you'd like.
Sure.
But my Chairman Nelson, should I keep going or should I stop?
Well, you're not going to be able to be on the panel, so let's have you talk a little more.
Okay, I'll
One
give you
more.
another example. So let's talk about education. It's something that I love to talk about a lot because I represent the Norristown School District and the Colonial School District. It's a microcosm of America, and I think we've made tremendous strides as a state house, house with a one-seat majority under the leadership of Joanna McClinton of fighting for our little babies and fighting for young people in our districts. But I think that it is undisputed. You can't find a scholar in this country or throughout the world that says that universal pre-K is not a game changer. Every data points um, to to massive success when you have a great foundation, and a great foundation, in my opinion, and according to the data, is universal pre-K. An example of us taking a courageous step is over the last 3 years under the leadership of Joanna McClinton and Chairman Jordan Harris of the Appropriations Committee, we've invested over $1 billion in public education year over year in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I think a great substantial step that will make incredible dividends, not just in Black and brown communities in districts like Norristown, but quite frankly, in districts all throughout the Commonwealth, is if we invested in universal pre-K, ages 3 and 4, making sure that those kids, you know how much I pay for daycare right now? $1,500 a month for daycare. And my child doesn't even go 5 days a week, 4 days a week, $1,500 a month for 4 days a week. The economic impact that that would have on families in my community of not having to pay for daycare for 3 and 4-year-olds, then the educational outcomes that that would have, I think that it would pay dividends. And I think one of the things that would be a game changer is if we were able to roll out a universal pre-K program. But we will say, and you will be hard pressed, and I think it's laudable. I think what we've done is great. I am by no means saying that it was easy. I think it's great the investment that we've done a year over year in public education. You will not find my critique in that. I just think that we could be bold, dream big, and when Democrats have an opportunity to govern, we've got to actually govern. I'm concerned that if the U.S. House takes the majority, will they go bold? Will they dream big? Right? I don't know. I think that this electorate, but more importantly, that the time calls for us not to play it safe, but to be bold, to take bold, decisive action in the name of our ancestors and to help advance us economically and academically. And I think that we don't need to create any new programs. The data is there. We just got to actually do it. And we got to flex our power to make sure those things get done. So I think a way for folks to not placate me by talking about the $1 billion, which again, I think is a major deal. Big deal, not taken away from what it took for us to get there, but we started that journey 3 years ago. Let's take it to the next step. We shouldn't be having kids in schools in Pennsylvania that have debt on their lunch accounts and not being able to eat in schools in 2026. Parents should be able to go to work not having to worry about whether or not they can have childcare for their kids. And I think that we have the ability to do that.
Thank you, Representative Scott. Thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on that new baby.
Thank you.
And
oh, by the way, there's another. Oh, no, I'm not introducing the next panelist.
you are not.
Okay, got
it. Thank you.
I get excited when I see her.
I know you do. You know what? Go ahead. You can do it.
Well, I am honored that I get an opportunity. Thank you, Corinne, for allowing me to do this. I am honored that I get an opportunity to introduce a person who I've known for a very long time. And I will tell you all that I am incredibly biased. We went to church together. She paid attention. I didn't. But more importantly, this is a woman who was a school board member in Norristown, then an East Orange Township supervisor. She is now the first African-American woman chair the Montgomery County Commissioners. And it's not important. I don't say all those things to give her accolades, and I don't think that was her crowning achievement. What I'm more proud of is the work that she did when she got there. You know, being the first African-American woman means nothing if you haven't made the community better. This is a woman, Jamila Winder, who when she got there, she knew the significance of paid family medical leave and what that meant for families. So now in Montgomery County, all employees have expanded access to paid family medical leave. Jamila knows firsthand what it looks like when your family is going through mental health trauma or some type of crisis intervention when all the services are closed, when it's happening at 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night. And it was Jamila's leadership that Montgomery County will open the first of its kind in the state. Quite frankly, probably the country, but I know for sure the state where Montgomery County will have a 24/7 mental health crisis ER that'll be open 24/7. You'll be able to go if you live in Montgomery County. You can pull up at 2 o'clock in the morning and 9 o'clock in the morning and say, I have this crisis and I have this person going through this, and they'll be able to seek care. It was under Jamila's leadership that the county raised their minimum wage. We're up in Harrisburg, and Napoleon and I are fighting the good fight along with Ronnie Green to raise the state's minimum wage. And our governor has been a leader in that, along with Lieutenant Governor Austin Davis. But in Montgomery County, Jamila Winder actually did it. So aside for all the titles, Jamila Winder is a leader among leaders who, when given the opportunity to actually lead and govern, she's doing it. She's unapologetically Black, putting Black policies or policies in place that advance Black people. And when you do that, we do know that when you advance Black people, we all succeed. And so she is unapologetically Black. She is lifting up policies that lift up Black and brown people in my community and all throughout Montgomery County. But more importantly, she's a mother, she's a wife, she's a child who actually gets it. She's a caregiver who gets it. She's a sister who is a sister with compassion. I'm incredibly proud to call her my friend, but more importantly, ladies and gentlemen, my Montgomery County chairwoman of the Montgomery County Commissioners, Jamila Winder.
Greg, I'll send you an Apple Pay later. Thank you. Thank you for that kind introduction, and always good to be with you and so many great leaders that are advancing the agenda of Black people across our Commonwealth. First, let me say, Michael, thank you for having me. Corinne, for getting me here. You know, the dance of a working mom sometimes can be challenging between bedtime, karate, baseball, but I'm here because this moment is important. Always great to hear from Rep. Nelson, Rep. Scott. You all are fighting the good fight at the state, and I'm grateful for all that you're doing for the Commonwealth, but Montgomery County, which is home for me. So I'm going to stay on topic for me. I was asked to talk a little bit about what we're doing on the ground here at the county level as it relates to our elections and as it relates to a moment where the Supreme Court is rolling back protections that we all know our ancestors fought long and hard for, so that we might have the opportunity to have a seat at the table, to have a voice in who represents us. And we know that we're in a moment of great challenge. But I'm here to tell you that you have elected leaders. You heard from a couple of them, myself included, that remain unafraid of what the Trump administration is attempting to do. When we think about, the policies and actions that we take as county government, I want to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing in Montgomery County in hopes that I'll inspire, other folks from around the county to really take some of those lessons and superimpose them on your community. But first, look, titles mean nothing to me. I appreciate that Greg talked about the importance or what I value most in the fact that, I'm a mom to Max, who's 5. I'm a wife to Kevin. We're getting ready to celebrate our 6-year anniversary. I'm a caregiver to my father, who is within earshot of me right now. And I say all that to say that, my lived experiences really help me govern, right? Help me deliver on policies and decisions and budgets that reflect my values and my lived experiences. And, I think about, my grandmother grew up in Abingdon, Virginia. And when I was a kid, she used to take us down there for family reunions. And I think about her journey growing up. And I think about, her lived experiences, quite different than my lived experiences. She lived to be about 104 years old. And I think about her fight, right? So that I might sit in the role that I hold today. I think about those that crossed that Edmund Pettus Bridge, right? That fought for our right to vote. And here we are, I'm going to tell my age. Here we are, decades later, still fighting the same fight that our ancestors fought, but it just looks a little bit different. But the good news is when we elect good Democrats that govern with their values and govern with their lived experiences, we can invoke real change. Now, I agree with Representative Scott that we do have a lot of elected leaders in this moment that are complicit, that are sitting on the sidelines and standing in comfort rather than standing up for what we know is wrong and what we know, and they're not standing up for what we know is right. And so, I stand before you as an elected official that continues to demonstrate that, as I mentioned before, I'm unafraid of Donald Trump, right? I'm unafraid of speaking out for what I believe is right and true. And here's a few things that we've done at the county level to ensure that we continue to protect people's right to vote. And I want to talk a little bit about that. And what we're doing in Montgomery County certainly can be replicated. So, the first thing that we've done is we're working to educate voters. We've intentionally invested in voter education and voter outreach to intentionally and consistently educate voters because we know what's out there. Misinformation is being spread. And we want to position ourselves in Montgomery County as a source of truth when it comes to our elections. And so we're increasing communications across platforms, trying to have clear and consistent messaging about how, when, and where to vote. And we want to be a trusted authority to the residents of Montgomery County, all residents of Montgomery County, to educate voters. Secondly, we're meeting voters where they are. Pretty controversial decision that we made. The two Democrats voted for it. The one Republican voted against it. But we now have a voter services van that is traveling across the county. And that voter services van is going into neighborhoods that candidly are not always feeling connected with government. Just last week, we were on a college campus. I remember Representative Scott and I took the voter services van to a senior living community in Norristown. And we want to bring county services. We want to bring voter access to places to give people the ability to talk to us in places where they're comfortable. This is about proximity and it's about trust. And so when we bring the voter services van, whether it's in a community in Norristown or on a college campus, people know that they can register, they can ask questions and get real-time support right in communities where they're comfortable. Third, we're expanding access points across the county where, across Pennsylvania and across the nation, they're trying to restrict access, but we're trying to expand access. And so we've been deliberate about expanding satellite election offices, and we've increased the number of Dropbox locations, secure Dropbox locations, both in number and the geographic location. And so we believe that this is an example of what equity looks like in practice, and it's about bringing government closer to the people. I have a few more things that I want to highlight, and then I'll be quiet. Fourth, we're expanding our voter services team. So when I joined the board in 2023, and our voter services team was one of the smallest in the Commonwealth. To be the third largest county with more than 900,000 residents, we needed to expand our voter services team because access without capacity is really just a promise. And so we've invested in training staff, more staff, so that we can respond quickly and timely. And then fifth, we're creating new ways to engage voters, right? Oftentimes, elected officials kind of limit their engagement to one communication channel or one strategy. But we have a responsibility to think about new and different ways to engage voters. So we're doing everything from telephone town halls to investing in direct mail, to the voter services van. We want to engage voters in different ways and understand how communities want to receive information. And then lastly, we're engaging young people, right? So this weekend we had a youth summit, our first inaugural youth summit, where we've had over 100 youth from across Montgomery County, from Pottstown to Lower Marion and everywhere in between, because we know what we do today will shape generations to come, and we know our future democracy depends on them. So even though a lot of the kids in that room are not of voting age, we want to build pathways for civic engagement. And so we're being intentional about partnering with schools and community organizations, and allowing the next generation of leaders to be a part of the discussion. Being at that youth summit this past weekend gave me great hope. Because while the adults are fighting and jockeying, and the egos are big and the egos are loud, the event that we did on Saturday gave me an opportunity to pause and hear from the generation coming up behind us. And they really give me great hope. And so it's important that we're engaging young people. And lastly, for us in Montgomery County, we are going to use every legal tool available to challenge what this administration is doing. It's not just about the Voting Rights Act. That's what we're talking about today. But there are so many examples of how we've had to leverage our legal power through our solicitor's office to challenge policies and practices that threaten access. As an example, when the mayor of Philadelphia challenged the federal government on taking down or trying to erase our history at the People's House, we joined together regionally to support our mayor to say that the federal government cannot erase our history. Slavery and what happened during those times is a part of our history, and it needs to be shared. It needs to be told. And we joined together to file an amicus brief to challenge that. And so, look, I know you are all here because you all play a role in being part of the solution. I'm just one small part of the solution, but I wanted to be here tonight to say I'm equally as concerned as all of you. And I'm ready to fight the good fight. And I think we're doing that in Montgomery County to ensure that our protections are protected. And you can count on me to not be complicit in this moment and stand on the sidelines and not take the appropriate action to ensure that we're protecting, everyone that calls not only Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, and this country home. So I'll end there. Hopefully I wasn't too long, but open to any comments that the team might have.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Winder, for joining us this evening.
I have a
And
question.
Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
If y'all don't mind, I got a question. I think civics is extremely important. And one of the things we wanted to do today is really understand that we've got different levels. And so if you could tell us, you are county, right?
Correct.
And
Right.
what are some of the things that county, commissioners do and what they're responsible for? Because some people don't know.
No, that's fair, and it's I look at county government, right? When I think about my role, it's actually closest to the people, right? In terms of county government. And so I oversee a $1 billion budget. So our primary responsibility is kind of not kind of, to adopt the budget and manage that fiduciary responsibility. But a few areas that I have the privilege of overseeing is 40% of that $1 billion budget is health and human services. So everything from our Office of Children and Youth, our Office of Housing and Community Development, our Office of Drug and Alcohol. So all of the social services that we're responsible for, 40% of our budget comes to really focusing on the people of Montgomery County. And so we have a responsibility for health and human services. We also have the responsibility to fund and support our row offices. So that's everything from our clerk of courts to our pathonetary. I finally learned how to say pathonetary, our register of wills, which I'm proud to say our coroner, our register of wills, our jury commissioner, right, are all Black women. So I'm so proud of that. But I partner with them. We allocate their budgets. We allocate the budget for the court. We run elections. So I am the vice chair of the county board of elections. So we are responsible for delivering on fair elections. And then responsible for things like roads and bridges. We have a planning commission that helps us think through affordable housing projects and how do we build more transitional housing programs. And so this is, the thing that I love about this job is like every day I'm connecting with different parts of county government, and I get to meet people where county government is having an impact. And so I would challenge, I would say, Michael, like most people do not know what a county commissioner does until they actually need to go to the county for something. I know, like I first, when I needed to get aging services for my parents when I was a caregiver, that's where I really started to get entrenched in understanding all the services that counties provide. And so we do a lot. We're responsible for a lot, but get to know, everybody knows your Congress people. Everyone knows Rep. Scott and Rep. Nelson, but get to know your county commissioners because, they're where the rubber meets the road in terms of local government, aside from, school boards and, municipal elected leaders.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Winder.
Thank you.
And I want to just acknowledge a few of our elected officials who are on the call this evening, as well as some of our state committee candidates, because state committee was brought up this evening. We have Andrea Baptiste, our jury commissioner, Mayor Codner, the only Black mayor in Bucks County, Jean Hembrick, state committee member and state committee member candidate, Denise Williams, she is a school board director in Pottstown. Keir Bradford Gray, who ran for Attorney General and who also says, Commissioner Winder, thank you so much for your leadership. We have Chair Emeritus Lisa Rhodes, as well as Sandra Jenkins, who is committee member for Montgomery County, candidate for Montgomery County, soon to be committee member, and Rajat Harris, the one of the few Black elected the only Black chair of Dauphin County and one of the few Black leaders in Dauphin County. So we want to thank you all for being here this evening, as well as everybody else. We just wanted to call a few of you out this evening. So this evening, we're going to have our
We had
panel.
one question. We had a question. Ross, a young man by the name of Ross, had his question.
Yes, Ross Tutter. Can you
Ross,
unmute?
did you have a question? Hold on. Let me try to find him.
Mhm.
So there are several questions in the
Oh,
Q&A.
okay.
So I've been typing up some answers for
Oh, great.
folks.
Okay.
I'll let folks know where their questions are going to be presented. Actually, there is a question for Rep. Nelson, if he's still in the room, from Andrea Baptiste. The General Counsel for the NAACP last week cited those states that have passed or are in the process of attempting to pass state voting rights acts as a means to protect Black voters and voters in all marginalized communities in their respective states. Has the PA Legislative Black Caucus discussed and or considered moving a PA Voters' Rights Act?
Yes. So we have not moved one, but we are working on one literally now. Rep. Tarek Khan from Philadelphia is helping to take the lead on it. He and I even spoke about it earlier today. We spoke about it last week as well. And yes, you can see many of the voting rights acts at the state level have been passed, as you can imagine, in generally Democratic states. Neighbors for us include like Maryland and Virginia. I think New York has one, California. So if you check out either the NAACP's LDF, the Legal Defense Fund, or I think NCN, well, I'll say the National Council of State Legislators also has kind of a tracker of what states have passed a Voting Rights Act. I know Senator Haywood is on here as well. He will tell you that a Voting Rights Act that we craft through the Legislative Black Caucus ain't going to get through this state Senate right now. So if there were an action item, it's let's make sure we win in 2026. I don't have to be nonpartisan in this. We've got Republicans in the state Senate who don't want us to do any of these things. They don't want us to pass a Voting Rights Act. They won't like the Voting Rights Act that the Black Caucus would be supportive of. And we need to make sure that we not only we will introduce it, but we also need to make sure that we get rid of the Republicans in the state Senate. I will also say, though, please understand that we are a one-seat majority in the state House, which means that we are 102-101, and the 102 Democrats that we have in the state House probably aren't also going to vote for the Voting Rights Act that we would craft. We'll probably have a few members, 2 or 3 of those 102, who don't want to take that political hit. Some of them are in very Trumpian districts, and they're just holding on because of incumbency. So we will not only make sure that we expand our majorities in the House in 2026, but again, make sure we take the Senate. These are critical items that need to be on our docket for this year if we want to actually take our movement for voting rights and voting accessibility from beyond just Black folk having a great conversation to how do we actually execute on the political power that exists with Black and brown folks in Harrisburg. We don't have the votes for it, but we will introduce it.
Can I just say one thing? Because I think everything that Napoleon said is 1,000% accurate. The only thing that I would add is I think this is an example, Mike, where you have people that will try and co-opt and use similar language. So there's an effort afoot in Pennsylvania and in Harrisburg and the Capitol to reimagine how we look at how we do voting and how we change our maps. And some people want to create an independent commission. Ain't nothing independent in government. If this Trump experience has not taught you anything, it should let you know that there is one person in charge or a group of folks in charge that will run at everything. And he has taken that and run with that. And I think the same can happen at the state level. And we've got to be very cautious against some of these legislative efforts that are disguised and use similar language that one would appear would achieve the same result that we're talking about. But in all actuality, once the people at the top get there that don't look like us, that don't come from our neighborhoods, that don't have our political ideologies, get in power, they will reimagine those maps and draw them in a way that does not look like the way it looks right now. And the reality is, the only reason why we have a 1-seat majority in the state house, the only reason why a person that looks like me is in the state house from my district, is because Joanna McClinton and Jordan Harris and Matt Bradford were courageous enough when it came to draw the maps to do it. The state Senate did not. They did not take that gamble. And so if you have an independent commission drawing these maps, we lose political power, in my opinion. That is my opinion. So I'm not in favor of some of those legislative proposals, not because I don't think in theory, they don't sound good, but in practice, they hurt and marginalize further Black and brown people. So when we're out and we're considering we're considering to elect people, make sure that we elect somebody not just because they Black, but because they're substantive. Because we got to really have these substantive conversations on this issue. And this is one issue where it's coming up right now. There are people in Harrisburg tomorrow and Wednesday trying to push in a legislative agenda that would appear at first blush to benefit us in this moment. But in my opinion, I don't believe it does. And I'm not speaking on behalf of the Black Caucus. I'm speaking on behalf of me. And I don't know, Napoleon, if you agree or not.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. And in fact, and listen, I'll call it, right? We're family here. There are efforts to make sure that, or consider whether or not we want independents to be able to vote in primaries. As chair of the Legislative Black Caucus, I always interrogate that policy and say, I don't understand how in the world that's supposed to help our Black and brown lawmakers in the caucus who perhaps have lower turnout communities. There are some of our members who will win their primaries in the next couple weeks here with 3, 4, 5,000 votes, where there are just as many independents in those districts who just don't vote because they don't consider themselves Democrat. Allowing independents to vote would dilute the power of Black and brown voters in this Democratic Party. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I know we are a large and growing portion of independent voters, but we are a much larger and much more loyal Democratic voting base, and that would be, I consider it so far disastrous. The other major item that we always look at are independent redistricting commissions. I will tell you this, and again, there are 64 of us on this call. I'm actually not sure that all 64 of us are going to feel the same way. Because what we see right now in Maryland and California and New York, for example, are states that are matching the redistricting fervor of many of our southern states, Texas, Mississippi, all those folks, Florida. I know my mom, for example, I asked her, hey, would you rather have, a district like, for those in the Southeast, Philadelphia's 3rd congressional district. It is the most Democratic district in Congress. It is a heavily minority district. We've packed that thing. It is a majority minority district. We could break that 3rd congressional district and have a better chance of knocking off Brian Fitzpatrick in the 1st. If we wanted to draw maps and gerrymander, because remember, what happened last week was we can draw maps with race not being a factor, which allows us to draw maps based on just political gain. And they allow us to draw them for political gain. If we wanted, when we take the Senate and hold the House, next time we come up for redistricting, we could draw a Democratic gerrymandered map. We could expand our majorities in the House, Senate, and Congress. If we win the Senate, the challenge is that they might then come for, Rep. Scott's Norristown district. They might come for, our Cheltenham district. They might break up Philadelphia. They might break up, Pittsburgh. I know Jamil from York, right? We've got, a York seat for Rep. Carroll Hill. Like there are some spaces that we have right now that are, that without that majority minority district of the Voting Rights Act, our own Democratic Party might say, you know what, we could actually probably expand our majorities if we break up those majority minority districts. I don't know yet how we're going to incorporate that into a Pennsylvania Voting Rights Act. So when we have these conversations on policy, we need to figure out, is it our desire that those policies continue to hold on to what has been the legacy of minority representation, or are we now going to say we're Democrats and Democrats first? I don't know that that's where I stand, but I think it's so important that you all get engaged in this very moment and reach out to both the legislative Black Caucus on the 6th or 7th and let me know where you stand. Don't let the independent, deep-pocketed folks with their agendas running around in Harrisburg, don't let them craft policy on our behalf. We won't do it, but don't let you guys. We need you to show up and speak out.
We have Michael Keys, who's also on the Black Caucus Executive Committee. We also have Kelly Caldwell, who's statewide Black engagement for the Harris campaign, as well as Keir Bradford Gray, running for state committee, as well as Dr. Brian Evans, the great-great-grandson of the abolitionist John Brown. So thank you all for being here this evening. We're going to get into our panel discussions. We have a few panelists this evening. We have Senator Art Haywood joining us this evening on our panel. We also have State Representative Napoleon Nelson on our panel, as well as Chairman Michael Laws, Chairman of the State Democratic Black Caucus, and we have Rajat Harris as one of our few Black chairs of the Dauphin County Democratic Committee. So we're going to give our panelists approximately 90 seconds to answer these next few questions that we have. And our first question for the evening is, first of all, we know that you know that nobody on this call wants talking points. And so what specifically can you tell us are the next actions, the next single action that Pennsylvania Democrats can take in the next 30 days?
We have got Brother Art Haywood that just jumped in. Can you speak first before you answer that question? Tell us about what's important to you as a senator.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me on and for all of the comments that have been shared before. The core context I want to provide is in the last 40 years, since 1975, there's been a dramatic increase in Black elected officials, particularly in the South. In some estimates, there were about 1,500 African Americans elected to office in the southern states in 1975. And now, by 2025, close to 10,000. This increase in Black elected officials is because of one thing, the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And there is a tremendous fear of that political power by some. The political power of African Americans is very likely to increase. Right now, a majority of the nation under 18, that is minors, 18 and under, majority are people of color. That's only going to increase, and by 2045, a majority of the United States will be people of color. And so it's this rise in African American elected officials made possible by the Voting Rights Act, and it's the rise in the population of people of color that's part of the reason we are getting this tremendous pushback from the Supreme Court. In 2013, the Supreme Court started their pushback, and what they did was ended something called preclearance. Preclearance means before a southern state could make changes in the voting rules, they had to get cleared, they had to get approval by the Department of Justice. This approval by the Department of Justice was a big check. It was a check on what they would do. And in 2013, the Supreme Court took that check away, giving southern states, those states covered by the Voting Rights Act, the ability to take action without preclearance check. In 2021, the Supreme Court took another step. They changed the definitions that would define when there was racial bias. And they came up with a new standard that makes it much more difficult to show that there's racial bias in voting systems. And then most recently, this week, a redistricting case in Louisiana allowed Louisiana to get rid of to get rid of what is commonly called a majority-minority congressional district. Now, I want to be clear. Majority-minority can't happen. That's not math. These are majority people of color districts. These are majority African-American districts. We got to get rid of this majority-minority. This is majority Black people district. And they said to Louisiana, you don't have to have it. And that the African Americans can be disenfranchised, not having anyone of their background represent them. I want to mention one other thing about Louisiana. Louisiana is home of a devastating case in the 1880s, where African Americans after the Civil War got together to vote, to run for office, and to win office. In a small town in Louisiana called Colfax. After an election, the African Americans had won. They got together to celebrate. They were encircled by a white mob. The white mob went into where they were staying, killed a bunch of people, and reversed the election. They went to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said, no protection. No protection for the African Americans who were voting, who had won. This is the kind of terrorism that built segregation in the South. This Supreme Court is now reallowing these new rules that are intended for one purpose, to decrease our power. And so what we must do is on two sides. One, legislation, and two, our individual voting. Yes, we need the John Lewis Voting Rights Act at the national level. That's an act that will restore pre-clearance, restore some of what the Supreme Court has taken away. Yes, we need that, and we need to take to Congress in order to do that.
Right.
Yes, we need a state voting rights act. Yes, we need to take the state Senate to do that. And when I say take these positions, it means we've got to vote so that we can take the power in elected offices. Senator John Warnock, Raphael Warnock said last week, after the Supreme Court decision, voting is sacred. And it is a sacred power that we have so we can have a voice in this government. I hope that we can all look at voting as a sacred power, a sacred right, and do everything we can to exercise it, either with mail-in or in person. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Senator Haywood. I just wanted to make a really quick correction. Dr. Denese Rhodes, so sorry, Denise, excuse me. And I also wanted to make sure that we acknowledge Miss Phyllis Bennett. So thank you so much for being here. And thank you again, Senator. We're going to go back into our panel questions, and we'll start with you. So what is the single action that Pennsylvania Democrats can take in the next 30 days to hold the line on voting rights? And we want specifics because we know that you know that nobody here wants talking points. And so Senator Haywood, we'll start it out with you.
The number one thing people can do is vote on May 19th. We are in a marathon in terms of changing the power in the United States. I got 90 seconds. This is a marathon that is going to take us from where we are now, probably to 2045, when the majority of the nation of people of color. And so we need to prepare for that transition of power so that we don't just have a new change in the population, but that we exercise the power that's commensurate with being a majority of the nation. And that means voting, 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 exercise our power.
Thank you so much, Senator. Representative Napoleon Nelson, same question to you.
Yeah, I'm going to say both the same answer, but also make sure that when we do, that you connect the importance of voting and the importance of having access to the ballot, unfortunately, with an affordability message. And I say that because everything we've seen, all of our briefings say that while we talk about the civil rights and while we talk about voting access on calls like this, the voter who's going to swing so many of these critical elections is so busy trying to figure out how in the world they pay their bills. So yes, it's vote, but also make sure that there are some petitions rolling around to help raise the wage. Please make sure that folks are signing up for that raise the wage campaign. That's how we make sure that we are talking about both the importance of voting and doing something about affordability in this state.
Thank you so much, Representative Nelson. We're going to turn the question over to you, Chair Harris. We know that you have success turning whole counties from red into blue. So from your perspective, what is it that the Democratic Party can do in the next 30 days?
Everyone already mentioned to vote, but we also want to make sure people know that next Tuesday, the 12th, is the last day to apply for mail-in ballot. So we want to educate people on the different ways they can vote depending on what their situation is. One way that we have turned Dauphin County blue, in addition to electing more Black elected officials, is we hold a lot of candidate forums. Make sure people know who they're voting for so that they're informed voters. Also, being the only elected Black chair here in Pennsylvania, a lot of people don't think discrimination exists anymore. So we need to keep telling people what we go through and what people go through, and educate them on discrimination and that racism still does exist. And even maybe having them reflect on their own personal biases if they truly want to, assist the communities in eradicating this. And then, of course, we want to protect the vote. So poll watchers, volunteers on Election Day.
Thank you, Chairwoman Harris. Senator Chairman Michael Laws, we will ask this final question to you. What can Democrats do in the next 30 days to hold the line on voting rights?
Whole line of voting rights. I think everybody's talked about that. But I think one of the most important things is a lesson that we learned during the Barack Obama campaign, which I worked on, is that we should do voter registration. Okay. And I can tell you this, in 2015, our voter registration advantage used to be over 900,000 over the Republicans. And the last cycle in 2024, it's jumped down to like 64,000. It was ridiculous. And we have to get back to registering our voters and making sure that every county registers our people and educates them on the necessary and need to vote. In addition to that, I do a lot of vote building, and I'm looking at a whole lot of places that are only at 15 to 20% of voting capacity in certain wards in certain areas. And we need to move that and let people know and understand it's important to vote, and it makes a difference, because if y'all had voted it right the way you should have in 2016, we want to be in the situation we are right now, because the Supreme Court effectively has taken us back to 1950. But anyway, 90 seconds, sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. We are going to get to my second question, which is for the panel again. Where are we most vulnerable right now? What is the attack on voting rights that we are not talking about loudly enough? And we'll start with you, State Rep Napoleon Nelson.
So again, I think this one is us. This is the internal conversation that we need to have, which is we think this is a Southern issue. We think this is a Southern Republicans coming after Black and brown folks, but I'm not sure, given how the Democratic Party writ large is feeling about redistricting and gerrymandering to compete, that we're not going to take out some of our own majority minority districts in blue states. So we need to really have a conversation around where we stand in our coalition and what our priorities are.
Thank you so much, State Rep. Same question to you, Senator Haywood.
Yeah, thanks so much. Our challenge, as I see it, is recognizing that voting is sacred. And there's not a bunch of people outside that we have to deal with, although there are. We have tremendous power. Let me give you an example. Philadelphia County is one of the high-level African-American people of color. In 20 out of the 67 counties was 64th. 64 out of 67. That's low. We had the same voting rights, we had the same voting laws, yet 64 out of 67. You had counties like Franklin County, 80%. Cambria County, 80%. Wayne County, 80%. Same rules. We've got to exercise the power that we have in order to get change. Corinne, I want to share something with all of you. Is this from James Brown? James Brown said, you got to use what you got to get what you want.
Well, that was 90 seconds. We appreciate you, Senator Haywood.
Now get on the good foot.
You got a song lyric in there too, so I know Chairman Laws appreciates that. We will ask, speaking of which, Chairman Laws, same question to you. What is it that we are not talking about loudly enough?
Well, I think what Art just talked about. The reality is that those counties, the smaller counties that only have 10,000, 50,000, 60,000 people in it, are voting at a rate of 80%. And I can tell you this, doing a lot of vote builder, I mean, I look at Lehigh County. Lehigh County turned out probably 35% or 40%. Northampton County did 50%. But we can't keep running and winning when we have the population necessary to win. Do you know that when you actually look at the populations where we are in the Southeast, we could run a Boston. For those that don't know what a Boston is, we could win if we just vote. So we need to concentrate and understand and sell people on the fact that it is important. Because right now, what is taking place is anti-DEI, over 500,000 Black people lost jobs. And who was that on? That's on the people that basically didn't feel it was necessary to vote. Those are the people that get paid, those little guys that took the money from, the Republicans on the side, some of those corner street hoteps that know better than to talk about, the Democratic Party created the Ku Klux Klan. Forget that. We need to let them understand voting has consequences, and not voting means that you're voting for the Republicans.
Thank you so much, Chairman. And last but certainly not least, Chairwoman Harris, same question to you. Where are we most vulnerable right now? What is the attack on voting rights that we are not talking about loudly enough?
I think everyone pretty much answered it. I'll just put a little twist on it. Especially as Black women, we are the #1 voting bloc for the Democrat Party. And I think we need to remind our Democratic leadership of that, particularly since we don't get the support and the resources needed to run and to be elected in certain positions. I think that's important to remember. We also have to remind Black voters that if we don't vote, someone will make those choices for us. And those aren't going to be choices that are going to benefit us, our families, or our communities. There are also sectors, we talk about the Republicans a lot, but we also have segments within the Democrat Party who are trying to take over our parties too for their personal benefits. And their agenda will not benefit us as well.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman. Before I go, I want to make sure I acknowledge my membership director from the Montgomery County Chapter Democratic Black Caucus, Mr. Oliver Kennedy. And I will now hand it over to the head of the Environmental Caucus and my Black Caucus live stream partner from the 2024 DNC, Ms. Aissia Richardson. Thank you so much, Aissia.
All right, so I'm not able to take Lisa from a attendee to a panelist, so she can ask her question.
I'll do that. I'm trying to find that right now.
All right. In the meantime, we did have a couple questions. There's a bunch of questions in the chat. Some of them have to do with issues regarding Congress and Congress making decisions to put some brakes on the Supreme Court. Some of them about the Voting Rights Act and how the Voting Rights Act is going to impact our voting. And then others have to do with mail-in ballots and getting those mail-in ballots to their homes. So I have been answering some of the questions in the chat, and particularly around voting and going to the Department of State's website to be able to make sure you get your ballot. And then also, we've got a question from Mayor Wayne Codner about making sure that we get our Black churches involved in these conversations as well. I think that's a really important question. And we've also got Ms. Phyllis Bennett, who's got a question. I'm not sure. I saw Ms. Phyllis in the as an attendee. I believe that Ross Tedder had a question as well. So we can figure out how we can have a conversation, that's rooted in what we know, but also making sure that we don't talk about what we don't know, right? So somebody asked a question about how county commissioners deal with voting, and I can't answer that question. That's a question for in Philadelphia, the city commissioner's office, and that's either Omar Sabir or on the Democratic side, Lisa Dealey. I know what they have been doing is making sure that there are voting in every single district, in every single council district. There is a satellite office that folks can either drop their ballots off at or get registered to vote. So I think that's one way that the Philadelphia has been doing voter education and voter outreach, making sure that you don't have to go down to City Hall, but that a city commissioner's office is in your neighborhood. So is Lisa ready to ask her question?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
How's everybody? Thank you so much for having me and promoting me up. I just actually, it was a statement. I couldn't get to my phone. I have you in my earbuds, and I was like, "Where's my phone?" But when we were talking earlier, I think that I was just really going to comment on the two questions that Chairwoman Corinne asked, which was, I'm not sure if people realize that back in 23, Governor Shapiro joined about 23 other states to do automatic voter registration for those who were getting their driver's license or government ID or renewing it would automatically be registered to vote. And there was some concern when we discussed this at the state committee level when we were promoting it, whether in the end it would backfire because now people didn't, a lot of them became Republicans, knowing that, which one to choose. If you're 18 and you're not getting any direction on which to choose, you just check a box, right? And so one of the things that we talked about is how important it is to be not to just vote, but to be an educated voter, because we see where being an uneducated voter what that has done to us, right? But the other thing is, so Mike, I was going to say we need to maybe take a look at that when we talk about how our numbers have decreased, and when we talk about voter registration, how we probably need to figure out how to be more intentional about doing the outreach to new voters, and folks who are registering to vote and being first time voters, to educate them on who they should vote for and why, right? So, and I'm sorry, Corinne, now I forgot the other question that you asked that was a segue into that. But that was it. And voter, and the other thing is we talk about people need to get out and vote, right? And the Black community needs to get out and vote more. But what I'm finding when speaking with young folks and hosting these various forums is people still feel disenfranchised, specifically by the Democratic Party. And then I keep hearing people saying, what about the messaging? What's our message? What are they doing? Why aren't we fighting back? Why aren't we taking some plays out of, the Trump playbook because it's being effective for him? So, I think that communication, messaging, and disenfranchisement we have to figure out how to do better at eliminating the disenfranchisement and increasing a unified message that resonates with voters that we're trying to do outreach to. So that was it.
No, I think you're right on point with that. One of my roles and responsibilities in the senator's office is onboarding young people, interns, and a lot of them have not registered Democrat. They want to work in a Democratic senator's office, but they're registered independent or they're registered Republican. And,
Mhm.
you know, we have conversations with it and they do say, oh, that was a mistake. You know, that was a mistake. I didn't know. So I'm really happy that one of the things that Commissioner Sabir has been doing is going out to talk to our young people in our high schools. And he's really been actively recruiting folks, not only to work the polls, but to do that voter education. So it is really important that we talk to young people and meet them where they are because, you know, like Michael said, our numbers have decreased significantly between 2024 and 2020 and 2024. And then there was another question about the redistricting, and so that's going to happen after the next census in 2030. But we should still be having conversations about this, and I think that maybe this is something that we can bring up at state committee, and then you know maybe this is like a webinar or a seminar that we can have to talk about, you know, like keeping an eye, like a redistricting watch, so that we are able to you know, talk with some authority on this issue. I think that I did want to get back to our program and see whether we can get Mayor Codner on. Is Mayor Codner here? Can he be elevated?
Mic check.
Okay.
Mic check.
Yes, we hear
Okay.
you.
I think you're there. You're there, Mayor. It's good to hear from you again.
Mic check.
We can hear you.
All right.
Yeah, you're good. You're good to go. You want to ask your question about the Black churches and the importance of the Black churches.
Yes, I'm just going to reiterate basically what I wrote down.
Thank you.
I do believe in the separation of church and state. I don't believe that pastors should be pushing a political agenda from the pulpit, but the church is filled with people who take action, the people who are willing to be committed. So myself, not fully understanding everything about what this judgment does and the effect it's going to have, I'd like to get me educated and then also to get the churches thoroughly educated on why this is such an important topic that they have to thoroughly understand so that they're not swayed by disinformation. And they are still the backbone of our community action. That's my statement and question.
No, I agree. The Black church has played an incredible role in activism, and in making sure that folks get educated, in helping people get banked, in making sure that people, you know, are in the arts and in the you know the Black church has played a really big role in our political lives too. And you know that goes back to some of the conversation that we were having earlier about how did we get from here to there with the Supreme Court? And I think that there was some intentionality with Du Bois, with the folks who were active and in the abolitionist movement, to be able to talk about how do we impact the Supreme Court, and that's how we had a Justice Thurgood Marshall. And now we've had a reversion of the court, and that structure or members onto the Supreme Court, like increasing the number of folks on the Supreme Court. So all of that, all of those things, I think, are on the table that we need to talk about and keep ourselves educated about. And certainly, the Black church is a really important role in that, can play a really important role. So thank
Miss
you for
Aisha,
that question.
if I can
Yes.
also chime in, I will say there are a couple of things. The Black Caucus, Legislative Black Caucus, is looking to have a stakeholder briefing. So we get an awful lot of great folks, Black clergy and our D9s and our NAACPs and folks like that will come to Harrisburg. We're going to hold a briefing, I believe, to try and provide some updates on what all this means. But for the folks on the call, please understand that in the immediate term here in Pennsylvania, this decision doesn't mean anything. In the immediate term here in Pennsylvania, we are good. The call to action is just let's make sure that we go out and win. And unfortunately, we're going to watch the news and see carnage in other states, perhaps even in other state houses. But our job is still the same. Our job is simple. We need to go out and vote. So please do keep an eye out for the Legislative Black Caucus or other organizations that will have a kind of brief for those who are not party affiliated on what this means. But, you know, there isn't an immediate urgency to say that here in Pennsylvania, votes are at risk.
Thank you. However, we do need to look at 2030. And again, Speaker McClinton was amazing on the redistricting, and that's reason why we have control of the House. You know, like keeping an eye on that and making sure that there was intentionality in the redistricting that happened during the last census, you know, is really important. And so nothing should dilute that. Yes, Senator Haywood.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'll just raise my hand when you finish.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to be clear that there's something we in Pennsylvania can do to limit this law nationally. And that is in November, flip the congressional seats that we can.
Mm-hmm.
First, 7th, 8th. There's congressional seats that we flip them here in Pennsylvania can change the composition of the U.S. House. And by changing the composition of the U.S. House, we can begin to get the national legislation that we need, including the John Lewis Act, in order to reverse this. And so there's an action we can take this November across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We can get some of these Republicans out, particularly those who just won and won by a very narrow margin. We have the power to do that. We must, and we exercise that power. We can get these folks out, get a Congress in that can reverse some of this mess. Now, let me be clear that we're talking about the Civil Rights Act of 1965. That was legislation passed by Congress. And so legislation passed by Congress can change what the Supreme Court has recently done. So it's not like Supreme Court, we're subject to the rules they came up with since 2013. We get a Congress that can pass a law to reverse it, then we can reverse some of this nonsense we get from the Supreme Court.
Thank you, Senator Haywood. Thank you. So I wanted to make sure that we went to Ms. Phyllis as well. Ms. Phyllis, you've unmuted yourself. Can you pose your question as well?
I don't have so much of a question as I have a comment mixed with a question. Mm-hmm. And that is, I've been listening to this discussion since Lieutenant Governor was on, and we have not come up with a solution. One of the things that we as people of color, Black people in particular, have to do is start supporting one another. We don't support one another enough. And what we do is act like we're Willie Lynch's children or grandchildren, and we fight amongst ourselves when we ought to be supporting candidates that are going to do things that's going to benefit us. I have been speaking to some young people, and all I hear from them is they don't know why they should vote. They have no reason to vote. They don't feel connected. And when I tell them that their not voting was a vote for Trump, they couldn't believe that that's what happened. And as you said before, we need to educate. But we need the involvement of every Black organization, whether it be the churches, whether it be the fraternal organizations, every Black organization, the NAACP, we need to come together as a group. So when we're having forums, we need to invite people from each of these areas to come and be with us. We have a lot of work to do between now and November, and this is crucial. And it is so crucial that I believe that we are on a brink of a slippery slope, and we're walking on top of a banana peel, and we're at the precipice, 1 foot over and 1 foot on the banana peel. Either we're going to do it or we're not going to do it. But we need a representative from each of these groups, and we need to come together as a group to make some suggestions and also to get out there and work and knock on doors. I used to love knocking on doors, but at my age, I'm not knocking on doors, but I make phone calls. And all of those that are running for state committee need to be running with state committee with a purpose in mind. And that purpose is to make sure that we don't change from blue to red, but that we go from red to blue in every county. And the only way we can do that, where there has been a change in red to blue, put some support there. Where there has not been a change in red to blue, put some support there if we're able to change that county from red to blue. And some of these counties here, they are Trump counties, and they don't care about us. But we have to show that we care enough about ourselves, that we're out there and that we are supporting each and every one that is running. We need, I heard Eugene say that the state committee didn't have a lot of money. Whatever they have, they need to put in these counties so that we can support. And I, again, want to thank Napoleon Nelson for what's coming up on this week at the Irvis Days. And I hope that he has a segment where someone can speak to what we're talking about today. And because I know that this is the importance of this election as well. If we don't get out as a people and vote and encourage other people to vote, then we're shame on us. Now, one last thing. Barbershops. Now, I don't want any of you black men to feel offended on what I'm about to say. But what I want to tell you, that some of the black men that were out there slamming a black woman, calling her all kinds of names, and wouldn't vote for her. In essence, they voted for Trump. That's where we are today. So we need you black men to show the support, real support. But we need to go in these barbershops and let these brothers in these barbershops know how important it is for them to vote. I go to the barbershop to get my hair cut, so I know what I'm talking about. When I go in the barbershop, and it's a large shop, they don't think they need to vote. Some of them don't think they need to vote. Some of them don't even think they're black. So it doesn't matter, all that things happen. But we need to hit the barbershops, the beauty shops, and make it intentional that we do this. So if you're ready to work, let's get to work. Thank you.
No, those are some really great recommendations. I think that we only do well when we work in coalition, and we only do well when we are doing it not because there's some monetary gain, but because it's in our best interests. And that's the thing that has to be articulated to our young people who are just learning how to vote, learning our civic engagement, is that people do this because it's the best thing to do. It's the right thing to do. So working in coalition, I think, is something that is great feedback. Thank you, Miss Phyllis. Thank you for those profound words. So I'm gonna throw it over to Michael, and to have us wrap up. This has been a great conversation. I think it's the beginning. Definitely, we need to continue to have these conversations, because we need to be talking amongst ourselves about how to make effective change.
Well, Rajette, I was going to have Rajette come in. Rajette, can you talk about the important things you got?
Yes, I was asked after the discussion to come up with 3 commitments and sort of a call to action to ask everyone on the call to share the top 3 commitments with at least 10 people within your network. So based on what everyone said, obviously number 1 is to vote on this for the primary, and then obviously in November, remind your family, friends, people in your network to vote as well. In addition, educate voters on the candidate so that they know who they are voting for. Number two is get involved with your local party. A lot of people like to complain, but they're not actually involved. Become a committee person. It's not too late. If you're not on the ballot, you can do a write-in. Each county is kind of different with the number of votes you need. So contact your county party to see what it is for you. But definitely get involved. If you don't want to become a committee person, there's trainings. There's so much you can do. But definitely get involved. And then support grassroots infrastructure, whether that's voter registration, election day volunteers, poll watchers. And then I think we all agree, even the elected officials themselves said to hold electeds accountable. Contact them, meet with them on what issues are important to you and find out where they stand.
Okay. Wonderful. I want to thank the Democratic Black Caucus, PA Dems. I want to thank also our vice chair, who's actually running in a competitive race in Philadelphia. Denise, would you like to say a few words?
I sure would.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Michael, for the opportunity to address the group. I think that this has been a very important topic, but to piggyback off of what our sage, our very wise sage, Ms. Phyllis said, that we have to basically each one reach one, teach one, because as was stated earlier, our young people are disengaged in the process. Many don't understand the gravity of the whole situation and how it will affect them. And so as we try to encourage people to vote and place emphasis on voter education, we must be able to speak to our young people in a language that they understand and share with them the importance of voting and why they should vote and what the future ramifications will be if in fact they don't. I think it's very important too for us to look at things historically, because we all know what happened right after Reconstruction. We had the right to vote. No one would have ever guessed that the right to vote could have been taken. And so looking at history and how history can sometimes repeat itself, I think it would be foolish for anyone to believe that even though it's very little bit being chipped away at a time, rights can be taken legislatively. So, just as everyone else has already said, we must be very much aware of what's going on. Just because something doesn't happen in our state in particular doesn't mean that futuristically it cannot happen. So we must be ever vigilant, work collaboratively to make sure that things don't happen that we don't want to happen, and get out the vote.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now, we also had a question from a DNC representative who is here, Todd Egan.
Yeah, I'm here, Mike.
You had your question? You'd like to make a statement? Tell us about the DNC.
Well, I've been listening for the last 2 hours. It's been a great conversation, and in the comment section, I just wanted to thank everybody. But I know that Eugene hit on it earlier when he talked about the DNC effort. And I was in Philadelphia the other night and spoke to Ken Martin personally, the chair of the DNC, and he knows how important Pennsylvania is. One of the things, and another speaker also hit on this, is that we have 4, if not more, congressional seats that we can flip here in Pennsylvania, and they are very much on the target for the DNC. So you talk about even though the congressional seats are set here in Pennsylvania, you talk about what we can do on a national level. Those 4 seats can make a big difference. So I think if we're working towards doing something immediately, there's been a lot of conversation about getting people registered, getting out the vote. But if you really want to pinpoint what can be done here in Pennsylvania to affect, voter protection and the voter rights, including reinstituting portions of the Voter Rights Act that have been dismantled by the Supreme Court. Those congressional seats here in Pennsylvania are a good opportunity for us as Pennsylvania committee people to really make a difference this year immediately. So I thank everybody for the conversation tonight. I think we just got to keep working hard, like all the committee people do on this call every election. And we've got to register more voters, and we've got to get out the vote in November. So thanks for the great discussion tonight, everybody.
Okay. Thank you. We have a few more questions. We have Wayne, Mayor Wayne. Did you have a question? I see your hand.
I do.
Okay.
Ms. Phyllis, I just want to thank you for your words, and I think they're very well stated as to all the things that are happening with us. I'm a first-generation immigrant. I did not understand the American system. I came up in this country, but I did not understand why things were the way they were. And as somebody who came in here with a blank slate, I want to tell you that political office looks very far away for a little Black kid who doesn't know anything about it. So I think that mentorship and bringing these young people in and showing your office and showing what you can do with it would be a good step forward. Understanding the history of how things got to be the way that they are, that seems to be removed from a lot of our young people, how we got here. And when it comes to being in barbershops, nothing is more effective than competition as to see who knows more. So get that history in there and find out what those facts are and how things are. I'm one of those Black men who's surrounded by people who say, well, my vote doesn't count anyway. I grew up hearing that. Here I am. I had to do a project about Egypt to find out about how great Black people were because they did not teach it in my school. I just wanted to put those points out there. I'm about solutions, and I'm here to listen, but I'm also here to find solutions. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Wayne. We
Thank
also have
you.
Michael Keys, who is
Oh, one more thing. One more
Yes.
thing, Michael. I want to respond to
okay.
what Todd said about those four seats, and I think
Okay.
that's our next webinar.
All right.
I think that's our next webinar. We definitely need to talk to those congressional those folks who are running, and we definitely need to highlight who they are, what they're doing, where they are, so that we can bring their perspective to the caucus. Because really, all what Mayor Cotter was saying is if you don't vote, you don't count. But if you don't have the information, how are you going to vote? So we need to, and it's also speaking to what Ms. Phyllis was saying about making sure that we're educating folks. So I think as a Black Caucus, we have a responsibility for us to understand who is running, where they're running, and how can we activate folks in those neighborhoods to get them to come out and vote.
Well, let's make a plan right now. What do you say? 7 days, we can do this again and invite those people from Congress to come to the Black Caucus so we can have serious conversation with them. We got the webinar credit. We bought webinar. I bought webinar. So we can do it in 7 days.
Yeah. We should evaluate whether or not it's more important in the primary or the general for those folks.
Yeah, I think it's important. Okay, good. Now we got our Secretary, Michael Keys. Michael Keys, you had your hand up. Then after that, we do have Rajette. Michael Keys.
Hello, everyone. I just want to remind everyone that I'm from Erie County and that there is a western portion of the state. I'm running for re-election to the state committee, but it's important to note that I am the only Black person in my entire caucus, which comprises of 11 counties in Northwest Pennsylvania. And as we found out, during the presidential election, the run up to it, is that we have to do a better job networking in with the pockets of Black people across our commonwealth who are not in the large population centers. And I think that that's where there's a lot of work to do. There's some 50,000 Black people north of Pittsburgh, and you never hear about us. But I just want you guys to come see about us.
Brother Keys, I'm going to see if I can get your contact info. I've been out to Erie several times, most recently just a couple weeks ago. I'd love to connect with you.
Great.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent. We do have somebody, Jamie Diane D. There's a hand raised. Let me see if I can find her. Hold on. I'm trying. I cannot find. Hold it. There you go. Okay. You should be able to talk. Ask your question, please.
Hello. So I put some of the questions in the Q&A section. Again, hello everyone. My name is Jamie Diana. I am a minister at Love Story Church under John Gray. I also work for Elevation Church, part of their prayer team. So I know how important it is to get the churches involved. And I mentioned those two churches because they are so far on the spectrum. And one is big on it and one doesn't say a lot about it. I also attend church under Pastor Jamal Bryant Harrison. And, he's very vocal with civil rights. And what I've been told recently is in order for me to vote, that I have to bring my passport, my real ID, and my birth certificate. And I wanted to know if that was across the board. Is that something that I was just told? The second part of that is I have encountered a lot, and this is not just young people. I am a millennial, so I've encountered all generations that have constantly said to me that their vote does not matter. And so I want to know what pain points can be hit to where I can speak to them to combat that thought process in their head. I do agree what was said earlier. I have told them that not voting is a vote for Trump, and I've been met with a lot of eye rolls and yeah, well, whatever, or what can you do? I still am not going to do it. Including my nephew, who I spoke to last night and begged him to register to vote. My in-laws are Puerto Ricans from Brooklyn. And I said to my nephew, you have an aunt who is Black. I am begging you to register to vote. And he, yeah, well, I don't know. And so I just want to know, what can we do to really hype up people of all ages to really get out there and vote? Because if they're seeing what's going on right now, and they definitely complain about it, but it's still not pushing them or engaging them to vote. Thank you.
Okay. Rajette, you want to handle that? Actually, it's 9 o'clock, so we're gonna have to wrap up pretty soon. All good questions. Rajette, you want to handle that?
I would just say I think we need to focus on the issues and how those issues affect all of us of all ages. Whether we're talking about affordability issue, we're still talking about the minimum wage when we need to be talking about a living wage. Education, we have people of all ages in their 40s and 50s who still have student loans, but yet they don't have the jobs to help pay them. And then kind of piggyback with the congressional race, one of those hottest races is in South Central PA. Here in Dauphin County, in the 10th congressional district with Scott Perry. And the reason why I feel as though we need to focus on issues is we all know a lot of these races are almost glorified student council contests. People voting on the popularity of the person, how many clicks they get on Facebook, how many photo ops they get, all that stuff. But those aren't always the people who actually do what they do and what they say they want to do. And then you have people who are focused more on the individuals. Well, if my candidate doesn't win, I'm not going to vote then in November. Instead of focusing on the fact that we need to defeat Scott Perry and those other Republicans in those other districts because their votes and those issues are affecting all of us. So I think we need to start educating people on the issues and become a more issue-driven society when it comes to voting. And I think that will help start curbing that.
Can I just add the misinformation about voter ID in Pennsylvania? Voter ID is not required in Pennsylvania except if you're new to a polling place or you're new a newly registered voter. But I don't know where the information came from about a passport, a birth certificate, and I think that there may be some confusion between the SAVE Act, which is in the US Senate now, but we don't have the SAVE Act, which would require documentation of proof of United States citizenship. So right now for Pennsylvania, there is no voter ID except if you're new to a polling place. So just keep that in mind as well.
Okay, with that being said, it is we said it was going to end at 9 o'clock. We've gone to 9:09. Any additional questions anybody might have? Okay, if that, I'm going to close out. Anybody, we can end at this particular point. Hold it. Come out. Corinne? Oh, hold it. Okay, hold on. Carmina. Just a minute. Let me try to find her. Carmina Taylor. Okay. Carmina, you want to say something? Got to be short, though.
Yes, I'll make it very short. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
One of the things that we have to be mindful of, at least at this point for the general election, is to make sure that counties are allowing the incarcerated to vote. I know Kira's talked about this for years, about local elected officials challenging their county commissioners to allow people that have misdemeanors, that are in jail, don't have felonies, or not in, are being held in jails, and giving them the opportunity to vote. So if that could be on one webinar topic, how local leaders and local elected officials can ensure people that are incarcerated have the eligibility and right to vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay. With that, guys, thank you so much. I think we had a good time, good discussions. We have a proposal for within 7 days, we could put together something that will basically interview those candidates that are actually running for Congress. Just to let you know, Northampton County Caucus, Black Caucus, did an event and interviewed a bunch of these candidates, submitted questions, and it worked out great. They allowed AI to actually look at the depth of the questions, and it was absolutely fantastic. It was amazing. One thing before you guys go, I want to show you something also that they've done in Northampton County. We had a class on training for AI, and I want to want you guys to see this. Hopefully, can you see this? This is AI. This is something that they did explaining.
14th Amendment. While it's the bedrock of American democracy.
Now this, okay, here we
This
go.
is the brief on the coordinated risks to our democracy from the Trump administration and the Supreme Court. Behind all the daily noise, there's a systematic, multi-front campaign underway right now by the highest court and the executive branch to fundamentally dismantle free and fair elections before the 2026 midterms. First, we've got to talk about the Supreme Court actively gutting the Voting Rights Act, that absolutely crucial civil rights law restricting racial discrimination in voting. This gave a massive green light to extreme GOP gerrymandering, letting them rig congressional maps in states like Florida and Louisiana. It's literally like the referee voluntarily walking off the field so one team can completely rewrite the playbook. Second, look at the Trump administration's blatant weaponization of federal power. The Department of Justice, the DOJ, has become a tool to target political opponents, actively targeting swing states to seize private voter data like Social Security numbers. Meanwhile, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE agents, are allegedly being...
Okay, so that's just an example. We did a training on AI. I led the training, and we created avatars that would explain issues, and also we designed that avatar. His name is Norco Tupac, to deliver messages to the young folks. So we have a number of different issues and a number of different things where we can help out using technology to get the message out, but also to educate people too. So that's what's taking place in Northampton County. And we have a lot of things taking place in all of our counties. I want to thank everybody for showing up. Thank you so much. It's been great. And now I can rest and go eat some food. Y'all take care.
Good evening, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
And thank you so much for our wonderful team, right? Corinne, and also thank you so much, Aissia. You guys do a great job every time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chairman. Great.
Okay.
Thank you. Take care. Good night, everybody.
Good night.